Hey everybody, this is Paul Quin from The Sessions, bringing you another element from the Artist Series. I am absolutely beyond thrilled to introduce our guests that we have today. Although they might be sick of the ups and downs, they might be getting the runaround, they're definitely good enough, and that's not luck. So they continue to release their own brand of pop, soul, funk music. They've written, they tour, but they really reinvent the business paradigm for young bands. So having said that, I am delighted to introduce Clyde Lawrence, Jordan Cohen, and Jonny Koh from Lawrence. Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Hey. Thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Oh, you are absolutely welcome. I think you've got a lot to offer. So I should point out that you are Grammy nominated for Something in the Water, coming up very soon. Congratulations on that. Great song. You're musicians, you're songwriters, and of course with Gracie, you have an actress as well. Maybe you can just let everybody know what you're up to right now.
Right now, we are doing a Broadway show. It's kind of a unique gig where all of us in the band are part of this Broadway show called All Out, which is kind of a comedy show with a rotating cast of comedians that read these stories and skits. And then we are the band for the show, where we're kind of doing background music during the stories and the skits, but then we also play our songs, like pre-existing Lawrence songs from mostly the album Family Business, on stage. Almost it transforms into a Lawrence concert. So it's kind of a unique show. It's hard to describe, but recommend people coming to it. But so we're doing that for the next couple months. We've been doing that for like a month and a half now. And we're just now kind of getting settled enough into the groove of that show that we're able to actually start dipping our toe back into like finding time to get in the studio, working on new music. I should say more broadly, we just finished the massive, what's been basically 2-year-long touring cycle for our album Family Business, which has been a really exciting chapter for us with a lot of growth and new elements. And that chapter is kind of closing. So as this show settles in and as the show wraps up, our focus will shift towards making some new music. Now we will have some touring and some fun shows this year, but it'll be a big year of getting back in the lab.
That's the fact that you're doing that show, though, just goes to how innovative the band is, because there aren't many bands that would think about doing something like that. And you should, by the way, mention where it's playing, as it's still got another couple of months to run, just so people can rush out and buy tickets.
The show is playing at the Nederlander Theater. And what's fun about it is that each week, more or less, or every couple weeks, it's a different cast of comedians performing. And they're all, A-list amazing comedians that we all have been fans of, but certainly would never have thought that we would be collaborating with in this way. And then we are kind of the through line. We are the common thread in terms of performers. Will be there the whole time. So that'll be up through March. And then, I think to your point, we try as best as we can to always be doing different things that are fun. We don't want to box ourselves into like, oh, we're a touring band. Oh, we just make records. We like to make fun videos that are sometimes very related to the music, sometimes not. We like to do stuff in collaboration with movies or theater or TV, whatever it is.
Well, I want to talk to you about your touring paradigm. And I know you do other things, but I got to address that because it is very hard for a band to generate revenue when touring. Although, frankly, in the current state of the industry, it's easier to generate revenue from touring than it is from selling records. Can you explain a little bit how you approached that system for touring in order to maximize revenue while not sacrificing the music and the performance?
I think it kind of all started over 10 years ago when we all kind of committed to being in this band and taking the show on the road, so to speak. We have an 8-person band that from day one, as you're saying, we all were very aware of how challenging it would be to make money. And that wasn't exactly the primary goal in the early days, but we knew we had to kind of structure our operation in a very lean way. We were touring for years with no additional crew on the road. So the 8 of us were learning about all the jobs that it would take to put on a tour, both logistically behind the scenes and on day of show, and from tour management standpoint, from merch standpoints, from accounting standpoints,
marketing,
yeah, like everything that would go into being a touring artist, we were kind of getting a real-time education on in our early days. As we were learning, we would kind of dole out these jobs to the 8 of us based on each of our unique skill sets and things we were vaguely interested in. In those first few years, we really, alongside developing our like artistic act, we're developing our business skills and our business model. And speaking for myself, I'm almost equally passionate about the business side of music as I am for the creative side, as I think a lot of us are in our, specific roles. And we just have always taken that stuff very seriously and developed tons of systems for how to approach all of those types of issues as they would come up.
What fascinates me is that in order to succeed at doing that, and maybe it was because you were young, right? Youth is a wonderful thing. You have to put egos on one side. I mean, I'm sure we all know musicians or have toured with musicians who would say, well, I'm the guitar player, I'm the trumpet player. I don't carry stuff. I don't sell merch. How did you deal with making sure everybody could put their egos aside to be?
It's funny that you say that, because I would see it as the opposite standpoint of it comes from a slight place of ego that we feel we can do all of that stuff.
Right.
Like, I feel like, if anything, Jordan is like hearing about, oh, you need to have a tour manager. Oh, like here's all the things that a tour manager does. And like an artist could never do all of that well. And Jordan has an ego and is like, yes, I could do all of that. Like I can be the tour manager. Like I have an ego enough to feel that I could do that job certainly very well. And Jonny, the same thing about being the production manager, and me, the same thing about being the musical director or the tour accountant, to the point where now I'd say our egos are so inflated about it that I'm like, I would never trust anyone to be my tour manager other than Jordan. I would never trust anyone to be our production manager other than Jonny, and I would never trust anyone to be our tour accountant other than me. And same goes for the other 5 talented people in the band and the roles that they have. So it's nice of you to say that it comes from a place of humility and being like, I don't need to carry my instruments. But to me, it comes from a place of us all being people that are like, I could do that. Everyone in the band has kind of an I could do that attitude.
And for some of the other sides of the hard parts of starting a band, like we were just 8 best friends in a van traveling around the country. So the idea of, okay, guys, like tonight's the night, we have to drive overnight, we're not stopping, everyone go to sleep in the van. Like there were no other options, and it was fun. Like we actually, for a time, really enjoyed the camaraderie of that adventure. In fact, Jonny's ego was so specific that he preferred to sleep on the floor of the van, which was an interesting thing to witness.
Yeah, it's worth noting, because I think we've kind of said this, but for anyone that is listening that is new to us, like it's important to note that all 8 of us in the band were friends from various points of childhood before we embarked on this journey together, and that it is still over 10 years later the exact same group of 8 people.
But that's remarkable.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the most remarkable things about our journey.
But it says a lot about you, not just as musicians, but as people. And we all know that what's the worst thing about being on the road is being on the road with people you don't like, right? No matter how good the money is, no matter how good the music is, if you're on the road with people you don't like, it's a miserable experience.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, none of us
really had to do it.
That, thankfully.
Knowing everybody for so long, getting everybody together in that manner, did people volunteer for those roles, or were they assigned? How did it work?
It's a great question. I feel like we get asked this a lot. I don't know. What do you think, Jonny?
I think that it was kind of a mix, and it depended on the role. There were some things that like we realized needed to be done, and they were like maybe not that desirable to do, and it was kind of like, who is up for this, versus some things like that either more obviously fell into somebody's skill set or somebody was already kind of like excited about doing, whether it was like, I think of myself as I have a technical background. So things like a lot of the like website, email marketing kind of things in the early days, like it was a no-brainer.
And on stage equipment.
Right. On stage equipment too. A lot of the like configuring our audio rig type things just sort of naturally fall into my skill set. And I do enjoy doing those things.
It starts small with like an obvious thing. It's an obvious like singular task that makes sense for someone to do. And then like as an outgrowth of that, they just like accidentally become an expert in that thing. So like, I'll give you an example of like Sam, our drummer, who was most typically, he's really good with like equipment and like our van when we had our touring van. So he kind of got involved in figuring out some of the stuff about like registration and insurance for the van, which then led to when we needed to like get an inventory of all of our equipment for immigration purposes. He kind of was like the most tangentially connected to that because he had already taken a whole interest in like the insurance and like registration for our car. And then like from that, it just became an outgrowth to now he's like legitimately something of an expert on like carnets and immigration forms and all of the different things that go into that. And so now it would be ridiculous to have anyone other than him work on it because he is by far the person that knows about it. Same goes with Sumner for merch. You know, like Sumner maybe started out by looking into some stuff relating to merch because he's really passionate about sustainability. They might have started there of him saying, oh, let's make sure that we're doing our best to print merch in a sustainable way. And then like just from an outgrowth of that, now he just like runs our whole merch operation.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of examples like that.
And so many bands are dependent upon paying other people to do those things for them that it makes them unsustainable.
You make less money and you don't get people that are going to be as passionate about it too.
100%. How long did you do that for?
We still do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great answer. But are there any other additional people that you take on the road now?
Yeah. So now we have we still consider ourselves like a skeleton touring crew. We have a front of house engineer. We have a lighting person. We have a video wall content creator and like engineer playback person. And we have like, what would you call Mike? Just a general tech roadie, does everything, camera person.
Even all of these people that we've hired, which is kind of like this core group of 4 people that come on the road with us now, even they are not really bound by their typical roles, and similarly have the humility, as you brought up, to not feel like, oh, I'm the sound guy, I only touch the sound mixer. But similarly to what I was saying, they all also, I think, have bought into the spirit of like the band ego of like, I can do that. I want to learn how to do that. So it's these 4 very talented people who have loose job titles, but similarly are each themselves doing a number of different things. And then, as you know, we were talking about before we started this, we have still a relatively small crew of like non-touring people, but like, you know, Zach and Rachel from our management, who are obviously helping in big ways from afar. And so, yeah, we have a group of people, but still all of us in the band are in charge of those domains that we have.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we think of it as like
department heads.
Yeah. Like even if we now have a sound person and a lighting person, like Johnny's still the production manager and he's working in tandem with those people. And like, as our merch operation gets bigger and bigger, Sumner will hire more people to work at his direction in leading the merch operation. As we already have, that's another 5th person that's off. Is a merch person, which is usually our friend Pete.
So, but still, the amount of touring that you did, the amount of traveling that you do, that is a tiny crew for all the work that you do.
Definitely.
I mean, so you're talking about 13 people. I realize that you're not playing Taylor Swift gigs, but you know, she had like something like 210 people on the road with her to cover all that stuff.
We were used to rolling up to venues that almost every artist going to them would be in a bus. We were rolling up to it in a van. And now that we're in a bus with 13 people, we're used to rolling up to venues in one bus with 13 people that are used to seeing artists roll up with 3 buses and, you know, 40 people or whatever.
And as we were joking about before, like it is a bit of an ego thing that we love. Like one of my favorite parts of the day is when the venue staff that I've been working with all day finally realizes that I'm actually in the band, because they often don't know. And sometimes you have these contentious days where you're like problem solving in real time. And when they see me put on my band outfit,
it's like sound check
what?
time.
And we've had so many funny interactions where like after the show, the venue rep will be like, okay, are you back to being the tour manager? Can we talk again? It's very funny. And I think we all get a kick out of that,
But do you realize how unique an approach that is?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are a lot of other bands that are similar, similar level in terms of sales and touring. I don't know anybody else that's ever even tried to do this.
We're always thinking about and talking about like how much to be thinking of what we do as the way that everyone should do it, and like trying to inspire people to take bigger chunks out of their business and be responsible for more. Or like, are we actually very like uniquely qualified to do a lot of the things that we do? I think that this is a very special group of people.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Like our model is not, I think that some people that are really inspired by us, which I really appreciate, see how we do things and think like that's how everyone should do things. And I actually don't think that's the answer. I think you need to look at the group of people that you have and figure out what are the sets of things that we could do really well that we don't need other people for. And that's if you're going to take a lesson from us, that's a good one, is like not just outsourcing things because people tell you to, but thinking about whether it's something that you'd be good at and or would enjoy doing and or have a passion for. That doesn't mean that you have to do literally everything. I mean, there's so many things I think of, for example, that Gracie does that none of us would be good at doing. And if we didn't have Gracie, we would definitely probably need to outsource. Like I'm currently working with some other friends on releasing like another artist project on a way smaller scale than Lawrence. And I'm bumping up against so many things that I'm like, oh, Gracie usually does this step of this process, and being like, I don't want to do that. And I wouldn't be good at that. Like we need to outsource this in some way or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's for everybody, but I think there's a general lesson to be learned.
But of course, the more people you have on your team, you don't just lose money. It doesn't just cost money, but you lose control as well. And so you're maintaining a level of control over everything you do that most touring bands don't have. And surely there's a sense of that must be liberating for the musical performance.
I describe it to a lot of people as like a lot of artists are not the CEO of their own company. In fact, they're lucky if they even work at their own company, but more often than not, most artists just become the product that a company that they have no equity in is selling. We very much are the executive board of the company that is Lawrence, all of us in the band. And I think to your point, you lose control. Otherwise, you start not knowing the passwords to the accounts or the keys to the castle. Like quite literally, like we've talked with artists who will be like, oh, well, you should look at this and this data. And they'll be like, I have no idea where I would even find this in this data. And we're like, oh, it's in this account. And they'd be like, I don't even have the passwords. And I'd be actually intimidated to ask someone because they would be concerned about why I want access to my own information, So like, yeah, I think you're speaking the truth about that.
Well, so let's go back a little bit. And obviously, listen, no matter how great you are as friends, how fantastically you worked together. I'll get a little thumbs up right there for no reason at all. No matter how fantastically you work together, no matter how much you're willing to wear multiple hats on the road, if the music wasn't good, none of it would matter. And music doesn't come out of nowhere. So where did music kind of become an important thing for you?
For me, at least, like, I think you make a great point in music. Music is at the beginning of all of it. For me, like, music is the thing that I've loved since I was a little kid. It's pretty much been like my main passion forever. And, then meeting these guys and the rest of the band along the way shaped and in some ways challenged and in other ways reinforced my existing music tastes and set of inspirations. I could talk more about what my musical upbringing was, but to bring it back to what you were just talking about, like so much of the stuff we do business-wise is strictly in service of preserving the ability to make the music that we want to make. Like, as much as I love doing all this business side stuff, I don't think I would care to do it if it wasn't for this goal of like us having so much fun making music and knowing how challenging it can be to make music when you don't have total control over it. And like being like, let's do everything we can to build an operation that's sustainable enough to let us put on the show we want to put on or make the music that we want to make. So they do go hand in hand, like you're saying.
Did you grow up in a musical household? I mean, I know your dad's in the entertainment business as a film director, but did you grow up with a lot of music in the house?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Gracie and I are like the first like sort of professional musicians. My grandfather was a musician semi-professionally. My grandmother was a great singer. My dad was like a hobbyist musician in college and then became a comedy writer, which is obviously there's a lot of overlap, both in terms of understanding the grind of the professional life of it, but also the creative aspects. Our mom is a dancer. So there was a lot of like that stuff. And there was always music playing in our house, like literally almost, I'd say every day when I would wake up, walk into the living room of our house, like my dad had Stevie Wonder, or the Beatles, or the Kinks, or, you know, any number of other bands that are still some of our biggest inspirations. So yes, there was always music. And then of course, Gracie and I growing up were just always playing music together. And then our brother Linus, who's extremely talented, also began playing music. So yes, there was always music in the house. And that was a really fun part of it.
What about you guys, Jordan, Johnny? Was music always important when you were growing up?
Yeah, it was always important. It was less like there was a musical component in my house, which was that my dad also played saxophone for fun. So I think as a kid, just seeing that, like everyone wants to do what their parents are doing, but he was never super serious about it, but always very supportive. I think I'm more of a product of a really amazing music program at my school and in my school district. It was so unbelievably encouraged and supported. And I had such like amazing teachers that it was just my favorite part of every day was all of the different musical programs I was doing at school. And then very early on in my life, I met Clyde and the Lawrence family. So I was very exposed to a lot of what Clyde's talking about. And it was such a fun part of my childhood was like spending time at their house and playing with Clyde and Gracie and like developing this kind of musical language and shared vocabulary. And I think we kind of grew up and shared that musical upbringing in some ways.
What about you, Johnny?
Yeah, for me, it was something that we had in the family. My dad really loves to sing and he loves to listen to music. So I had a lot of, you know, good music around, a lot of the Stevie Wonder, old soul. My dad also is a big fan of folk music, which didn't really rub off on me in the same way. It kind of just became something that I loved to do. Like I would get lost in playing guitar for hours, you know, maybe not in the most structured way. You know, a lot of people like are really good at very rigid practice where they have a goal and they're playing for a long time, you know, trying to accomplish something. And I really wasn't doing that. I would just kind of sit there and play and get lost in the guitar for the sake of playing, maybe not always doing the most productive thing, but having a great time with it until I like felt comfortable enough also to start playing with friends, and then met Clyde in college and have been playing with him ever
You
since.
were also a big student of like music production from an early age. Like I feel like when we met, even as kids, or, you know, as when I was a freshman in college, it was like you were probably, at least it seemed to me, which was rare for someone of that age, like somewhat equally passionate about like being a guy that's really good at guitar, but also like you were almost known around campus as like a guy that like really knows how to like record music in a legit way, which I think speaks to like some of the same like technical skill sets that you've always had.
Right. It's kind of born out of my dad was a doctor, but one of his main hobbies was computer science. So I had a lot of like technical gadgets in the house growing up, which led to having like an old Tascam Porta Studio that, like, you know, when I was 14 or 13, I would be playing with at home just with like my cheap electric guitar plugged straight into the instrument jack, just like playing guitar over guitar over guitar, and led to me like taking classes at, you know, various places around for things that had to do with music technology, just because I like would really love to get lost in sound. And that wasn't always for me. It didn't have to be harmony. It was also like, how do you make and record and kind of like mess with sounds even after you played them?
I remember like always being so grateful to like have met Jonny and be like, now I know someone that I actually trust to like know how this recording process works, which I feel like is something that persists to this day. I'm like, Jonny is someone that I'm always like, okay, like I can ask Jonny about how this works and get a reliable answer on it.
Well, you know, my dad always used to tell me when I was growing up that the smartest people are not the ones that know everything, but they're the ones that know the right person to ask. And it seems that the entire Lawrence experience is just surrounding yourself with these people that can do all the things that need to be done, and with the added bonus that you like them.
Totally.
I think that
I love the fact, by the way, that you mentioned you had a Porter studio, because I'm old enough. I had a little Tascam Porter studio, and I was trying to explain that to my kids, and I was telling it was the first device that came on the market that allowed you to multi-track onto a cassette tape.
Right.
And that was immediately met with the question of what's a cassette tape? Yeah. You know, so we have indeed moved a long way since then.
I feel grateful that we are just old enough to have, like, in my earliest memories of learning how to record, kind of caught the tail end of a slightly different era of both music recording, music distribution. You know, I feel like in my earliest days of creating a framework for myself on how music is made and put out in the world, it was still an era of like people buying full albums, you know, CDs, not vinyl records, but, you know, and then, yeah, same with recording, was like a more live instrumentation based and like live recording process than if you were learning how to do it now, how to make and put out music. So much of, even though we're not that old, so much of what I was raised on wouldn't be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all analog for me for years. And, you know, I was already in law school before I ever recorded. I didn't go to law school till I was old already. I had another life before, but I was in law school before I recorded with a digital desk. I worked with engineers who would splice tape, which was just like voodoo to me.
I don't know how far we would have made it if that was the process.
You maybe not. Jonny would have been.
Jonny would have.
Yeah.
I would have been out.
Yes.
You would have been in the lab.
So was there a moment? Did y'all ever have a moment where you realized that playing music would be the thing you would do for a living?
I think I kind of like knew that since I was a kid. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I knew that this was the only thing I had any interest in doing with the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I don't know if there was a moment, but
I think Jordan and I also like formed that partnership really early on. Like me, Jordan, and Gracie together, I think all kind of had a sense from the time we were like 6 years old that we all wanted to play music, and ideally together.
Yeah.
As like our thing.
I saw this picture that came up on my phone that's kind of related to this, which is to all that we're talking about. When we graduated college, my parents let me convert their entire basement into a recording studio, which was basically, it ended up being the highest level parents' basement studio you can kind of have. And that's where we ended up making our first three albums. There's a great picture, and I remember the day, which was when I had just bought the computer and the speakers and the interface, and it was the first time Clyde came over. And there's a great picture of him like over my shoulder looking at Logic, and it was when they first showed like flex time at quantizing. And I just remember that day, I was like, oh wow, this is cool. We're about to spend years of our lives just in this basement. And that kind of is what ended up happening.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I witnessed the moment that you decided to pursue music professionally.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the way that you phrase the question is important, I think, because the moment that I decided to pursue music professionally and the moment where I realized that I was going to be doing this how did you say it exactly? The moment that I realized I was going to be doing this for the rest of my life,
Right.
Or not the same moment.
Right.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I think that
too.
second one maybe happened even later than I always thought as a kid that I wouldn't be doing music professionally. I like really enjoyed it and thought I'd be playing music all my life, but I always assumed that like I would have a job of some kind, which I did for a short while. But in 2015, I'm 2 years older than Clyde. So I was out of college for 2 years working in the city. And then in 2015, when Clyde graduated, he was like, we're hitting the road. Are you coming with us? And even then I was like, yes, but I had always kind of thought like, oh, this will be fun. And let's see how far we can take this thing. And then like, you know, inevitably if something happens, like, and it, you know, I have to like go back to normal job life, like I'll be ready for that. And I think that it took a couple years before I kind of was like realizing like, oh, maybe I don't need to have this contingency in the back of my head where I'm like, when am I going to go back into software engineering or some other version of normal job life?
Jordan and I
That
made a
raises-
toast at Johnny's wedding about how we corrupted what could have been an otherwise very relaxing normal life.
Remember the conversation in Johnny's basement?
Yeah.
I was like, come on, you got to quit your job.
Yeah.
This will be so fun.
Yeah.
But that's so healthy, though. You know, I mean, because there's all this concept of that, you know, because I'm sure maybe not you, Clyde, because you came from a family that was kind of in the entertainment industry. But, you know, when I was growing up, I heard all the time, well, you got to have something to fall back on. You know, you got to have something to fall back on. And when the sessions started, we've been doing this since 2011. And our fearless leader during much of that time was a guy by the name of Don Famularo, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Yeah, Don was the greatest human in the world. He always used to tell people when they said, well, I need to have a backup plan. He used to say, take your boat to the island where no one lives, sink the boat. It's the only way you'll succeed. Otherwise, you'll be thinking about leaving all the time. Yeah. So you still think you need to have something to fall back on, Jonny?
No, and I actually think for what it's worth that the way that I painted that picture was not completely accurate, because I think that I've always enjoyed music, but I've also enjoyed making things. And I think that even though I've sort of left computer science behind as a sort of full-time salaried job, that version of the thing, I've not left behind getting to like design technical systems, first of all, within the Lawrence brand, but also even like software engineering. You know, I still like have fun projects that I work on the side. Something to fall back on feels like, oh, this is what I'm going to do in an emergency. And the way that I think about it is more that like these are just things that I like to do that I want to keep doing, regardless of whether or not I've found a way to make money from them.
Well, no, I think that's the right way to be. I mean, you know, I'm sure my dad would tell me now, see, I told you need to have something to fall back on. Now you're a lawyer. You know, then he would question why the people I choose to represent are all broke musicians. But that's how I sleep at night. And, you know, keeps me healthy.
Always got to find the balance between doing something that you really like to do, figuring out how to make money from it, and like, how can I combine those things? How can I like, you know, make a living and also feel fulfilled by doing something that I like and care about?
But that seems to be the essence of the Lawrence brand, right? I mean, of course, it's incredible music, you know, and it's music that I can't, you know, I'm not blowing smoke, that I absolutely love. But there's a brand in there, which is we are independent, we have integrity, we work hard, we wear many hats, and look what the product is. How can you bottle this, man? How can you sell this to the world on how to be successful?
To the point from before, like, I'm very careful not to be prescriptive of trying to be like everyone should be doing it how we're doing it. But I think that certainly there are some things that I think that people that are trying to make it, or people that have already made it but are unhappy with their own relationship to their own business, which is a lot of people, can take from what we're doing, which is the idea of like identifying things that matter to you and like not being afraid to fight for those things. For us, again, like this is all in service of like maintaining control over what we're doing because we care about it. It's also like not being afraid to admit it's not sacrilege to admit that you like things other than just making the art that you're making. I think that like there's this romanticized thing in the entertainment industry, and I'm interested in your perspective on this as a music lawyer. But like, you know, I think that there's definitely a romanticized thing in the entertainment industry on behalf of the industry people, particularly including reps, where it's sort of like it's sacrilege if the artist spends any time doing anything other than making music and saying to them, oh, well, any second you're not spending writing another song is, you know, not the best use of your time creatively or financially. And I disagree with that fundamentally. I think that if you're an artist that likes doing your social media, then you're going to do it better than anybody else's. If you're an artist that likes doing your own accounting, then you're going to do it better than anybody else's. So I think that like changing that paradigm and making people feel empowered to not be afraid to ask questions or question things just because it's how it's always been done. Those are the broader lessons that I'm down for people to take from what we're doing.
But that's a really good point, because it's something often that record company executives and people, the lawyers that represent them, don't understand. I've lost count of the number of contracts I've negotiated on behalf of artists where there's a clause in there that says artist agrees to devote 100% of their time to their musical career.
Really, that's an actual clause in the contract?
Oh, yeah. Common.
Probably makes sense in terms of like, you don't want it to sign an artist that's then going to like go to med school.
Right.
I think that they should sign the artists, and then they should give the artists a career that's fulfilling enough to them that they don't want to go to med school.
Yeah. Well,
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I see both sides of that.
Well, but my point always to that is you need to let an artist be an artist. And if walking the dog for 6 hours a day or cooking dinner for 50 people is how they get to their happy place, that will help them become a better artist. And you know, whatever they like to do, you got to trust them. I understand labels are going, well, not so much anymore, but they're going to sink some money into the artist. But trust me, they're planning on getting it back. Let the artist be the artist. And if you're not satisfied, sign somebody else.
I agree with that completely. And I also think like for us, one of the challenges I think in our career is that we have this whole other side to us that you are describing as like part of our brand, which I really appreciate. I think that for a while, it wasn't necessarily part of our brand. We were an artist that like did all of these things. And if you really knew us or really dug into what we were doing, then you would uncover this like other layer of understanding. Oh, this is how we operate our business. It's this family band. It's a band of friends. We wear many hats, all the things you're describing. And we realized that like, rather than that just being a footnote in our journey, that was the thing we were doing behind the scenes to allow us to make the music that we wanted to make and to control our brand. We realized, you know, that people like you and so many others were really interested in that side of things and actually like found it to be very core to their relationship with us in terms of the fan artist relationship, which is why we then kind of stumbled upon this idea of calling our latest album Family Business, because it was like this perfect album title that allowed us to put how we do business and how we approach the industry front and center. It wasn't like, oh, we have an album called Hotel TV, which was our album before it, where it was like, yeah, our new album's called Hotel TV. It's about, you know, this and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And by the way, another thing you might find interesting about us is how we do everything ourselves and da-da-da-da. It now became like, to understand the album Family Business purely on an artistic level is also to understand this way that we approach the industry. So I'm really grateful for the way that all coalesced, because it was very intentional on our part, but it really worked out as well as we could have hoped.
I'm not sure you can separate the two, because listen, don't get me wrong. I am a genuine fan of your music, and frankly, if you traveled in 8 tour buses, one each because you hated each other and didn't talk to each other, and were signed to Sony, I'd still dig the music. my belief is that music couldn't exist if that was the situation that there was. You know, there is a joy to your music, and the lyrics are not always upbeat. Some of them are beautifully melancholic. Some of them are beautifully sad. Some of them have some satire and some irony. But when you put it all together, I'm not sure you can separate those things. You are who you are, and it manifests itself in the music that you write and perform.
I agree. Well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I agree. And I think that telling that story through this album has been nice. Then I think it is always inseparable, like you're saying, but this latest album made people understand that that's the place where it's coming from in a more front and center way.
It's a great record. I had a quick question about some of you play some great covers. How do you select the cover versions that you're going to do? Is there a process where you say, this is something we like it, we're going to do it, we can improve on it, or we can do our own version of it? How does that come about?
I mean, a lot of it started because we were a college band playing college parties. And so in our early days, before we started like touring as a headlining band, we would pretty consistently like play parties where we were doing like half covers, half originals. And so we would just play like songs that we thought would work well in our set list at parties. And those were often a mix of like retro, or it was kind of a mix of two different things. I would say some of it was like early 2000s songs that were the songs that we should have grown up with, but instead we were growing up with songs from the 70s. Like I kind of missed out on the whole like Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Christina Aguilera era because I was growing up listening to stuff from the 70s. And then when I came back around to it when we were in college, we all kind of had fun like doing almost 70s soul funk style twists on those songs. So that's one big like style that we did a lot of. And then a lot of it is also just, playing songs from the 70s and trying to bring them into the modern world. I'd say like there's very few covers that we do that we don't try to put our own spin on in at least some fashion.
No, you do. But that, I mean, I listened to your cover of Live and Let Die, which was just great. I'm privileged. I represent a great drummer called Denny Sywell, who was the first drummer with Wings. And I sent that to him. And he responded just full of praise for how great it was.
That's awesome.
It's just cool to do the right songs. And I think some of your influences are clear, musical influences. I mean, you can tell that you listen to Stevie Wonder. You can tell, certainly Clyde, you can tell you listen to Randy Newman because sometimes you phrase a little like Randy Newman, and that's the highest compliment I could give to anybody.
He's my favorite. No, he is absolutely my number one, probably, influence. He's in a group of my number one influence.
Sure, it's always hard to pick number one, right?
Yeah.
With it. Let me ask you about Hip Replacement, which has got massive Tower of Power groove and feel to it.
Yeah, Hip Replacement, talk about a song that definitely, to your point, like is pretty inseparable from how we choose to approach the industry in terms of like, that's a song that would not get made if not for it being a group of people who are like dedicated to making exactly what they want to make, whether it's what other people think is cool or accessible or not, both literally in that the song is quite literally about the exploration of what is and isn't hip, but also just in terms of like how many different directions it goes. And it's been so fun that has become among our biggest fans, I think probably a fan favorite.
Yeah.
It's funny because a lot of sibling bands, the reputation becomes like, oh, they sound like one voice, like,
yeah, no, you
that's
don't.
like the thing, when you're talking about the Beach Boys or the Bee Gees or whoever it is. And it's like Gracie and I have two very distinct voices that I think work well together, but provide pretty different flavors.
No, absolutely no. And one of the things I like the best, and I think all young bands could learn from this, when you play live, you're all having a good time.
Totally.
I mean, you can tell that this is the highlight of your day right now. You're playing the music you like, you're getting appreciated by an audience, and you like each other. There's nothing frustrates me more than the mean and moody musicians that don't smile or because it's not cool, or don't dance around, don't make themselves occasionally look a little foolish. I think that is
We're good at that.
well, you know what? It's done with such integrity, Jordan, that I don't think it matters. I mean, there's a quirkiness to some of the music, and there's a quirkiness to some of the performance, but it's still cool. I don't really know how you do that. There are challenges in the industry, right? And you're all very aware of them because a lot of your approach has been to bypass those challenges. But what challenges do you still see facing young musicians that you have experienced or you can give some advice about?
I want to think about the right answers to that. I mean, I think...
Well, I can give you some suggestions if you want. So challenges, of course, in revenue, right? Especially in record sales. I mean, you hear a lot of artists say, what's the point of releasing records? When I was young, you toured to sell records. And now really you make records to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I assume you're doing well on ticket sales.
Yeah, I mean... And our albums do, because we own them, and we also do a lot of the work in creating the albums ourselves. We do spend quite a bit of money in making the albums between, other people that we involve and marketing money. But our albums do pretty much always recoup whatever we spent on them within 2 years. So then and because we own them, now every album, once you hit 2 years, we do just passively make some money every year off of all of our albums, but it's definitely a small amount in comparison to the touring business, which, all 8 of us make a decent living on. So it's definitely, to your point, the paradigm is very much that the music is in a lot of ways to market the tour.
What about publishing? Do you have your own publishing company?
No, publishing, we're a little bit less robust, I would say, is the best way to describe it. I actually recently, for the first time, signed a legit publishing deal with Warner Chappell. That is kind of the one area where a major company, as of very recently, owns a solid stake in anything to do with Lawrence. Yeah, but then these guys are totally self-published, and I was either on admin publishing deals or self-published until recently.
Well, I think one of the things you hear often from older musicians talking to younger musicians is they'll give this piece of advice, and I get it back from the younger musicians when they retain me. No, everyone tells me I always have to keep my own publishing. Keeping your own publishing is great if you know what to do with it. And signing with a company like Warner Chappell, who are one of the best policers of your publishing to make sure no one is taking advantage of what you write, is huge. And yeah, owning 100% of nothing is often not as good as owning 50% of something. I'm a big fan of signing the right publishing deal.
Yeah, and I think even as it extends to other deals, we are always open to signing deals if they're right. We would sign a record deal if the right deal was in front of us. It needs to make sense creatively. It needs to make sense in terms of where the control lies, and it needs to make sense in terms of the dollar amounts. Even when we're talking about a publishing deal, it's the amount that a publishing company, a legitimate publishing company, can collect for me in royalties that I probably wasn't getting as self-published, especially with a lot of the work I've done on certain things that might have international revenues that are hard to make sure they're being collected in the right way. At least what I'm seeing on my reports is that even if nothing else came of it, that's already making up some of the difference in what I'm giving up to them. Do you know what I mean? So it's you need to believe that people are going to put in, that a company that you're signing a deal with is going to provide the value. To your analogy, if you were to give away 50% of something, you need to have it be because you believe that they are going to make it at least twice as big. That would be mathematically the break point of it being a worthwhile deal or not.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. But it is always amazing to me how little people understand about the publishing world. Challenges. So what else can you think of? I mean, listen, life gets in the way sometimes of being creative. And that can be a challenge. And the question is, how do you get past that?
For us, we've always within our organization really just like preached like open and honest communication. And I know that sounds a little like buzzwordy, not for the sake of just like everyone feeling comfortable, but actually just because like I know other people in the band are like big believers in like that is the conduit to like successful problem solving. We are like very much a systems oriented band that like we get pretty detail oriented with things. So like to bring it back to your point of like life getting in the way, it's like, okay, what if someone in the band moves out of New York City? Or what if someone has a personal commitment that causes them to not take the same flight as the rest of the band to the gig? How does that, if you just don't talk about that, then like it could become a thing of like, oh, their flight was more expensive. People are then resentful. And then people think like, oh, well, maybe I should have a personal commitment that brings me to a place where I have to get flown to the gig from a more expensive location. Oh, now all my flights are from Hawaii, whatever. Like, you know, like we really talk through those things and create systems of like, okay, here's how it works. If like we have an answer to a lot of those questions, and those answers are not written in stone, they're written in pencil so that, you know, they can be adjusted if new precedents come up that make us realize that they ought to change for whatever reason. But I think we're big believers in talking those things through and not letting things build up under the rug, because to your point, life happens. We are in this for the long haul. People are going to have different things in their personal lives. People are going to get married and have children and move to different places and whatever it might be. And like, better to create this practice of having open and honest communication so that the systems can be in place. So I think that would be my answer to how to manage the personal lives and the way that all intersects.
Any other thoughts, Jordan, Johnny? Communication is clearly vital.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. When you asked the question initially, my head kind of went to a different place of just like the struggles of getting a project off the ground and building a team and like knowing what to do next. And in thinking about what my answer to those kind of issues are, I just think it's important to acknowledge that the music industry is changing so quickly, always. And although we are still young at heart, the music industry was different when we were starting. Like we were kind of probably the last generation that social media wasn't like the biggest thing that everyone spoke about when starting.
Social media was kind of like this new fun way you could get discovered.
Yeah, like we were using social media certainly and like creating Facebook events for all of our tour dates and inviting anyone that we knew in those cities. But our biggest tool was like, let's make an album and get in a van and see what happens.
And we were like playing gigs in New York City. Like
a lot.
We were playing like at small clubs in the Village every 2 weeks in New York and building up a word of mouth grassroots fan base, which now sounds like it might as well be in like a black and white movie.
Right. And like when I talk to young artists and I'm like, and we're making music together, I'm like, I can't wait for you to like play shows and get out there and start. It's like, oh, well, my team is saying I should just be posting more about it. I'm like, okay, maybe, I don't know.
Right. It's like hard for me to give advice about how to get a project off the ground because I would be concerned that like my answers would seem like quaint and idealistic about like, just get in the van and start playing at bars. It's like, that's what we did. And it's like, that was like 10 years ago.
Right.
And
the same way that we're talking about how the 8 of us were able to build this team from the ground up together, starting an 8-person band is not for everyone. And some artists are just a 2-piece band. And am I saying we'll go hire 6 people to be partners with from day one? I don't know if I'm saying that.
And our brand of music worked really well for that grassroots play live in a bar thing. Like, It's not just about our music is better than someone else's. It's like quite literally our music is very well tailored to like playing in a small bar where like it doesn't matter if people are trying to have a conversation at the bar and they didn't come to see us, or the bartenders are clanking all the things to each other. It's like, we're going to play loud, fun music, and you're going to have no choice if you're in the vicinity to form an opinion about us one way or the other. You could make music that's, you know, as good or 10 times better than us, but if you're like just a person with an acoustic guitar, like, you might have more trouble in this day and age, even if that was still a viable model, like commanding the amount of growth that we did by doing it that way.
Well, yes, if you think you're in danger of providing an antiquated response, imagine how I feel. You know, I did my first professional gig in 1978.
Right. So,
yeah, things have changed a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what, though, that model that you talked about, I do want to come right back to social media, but that model that you talk about of just getting in the band, getting tight, becoming a good instrumentalist and getting out and playing gigs is still the only way. I mean, it's the only way to have a lasting career. It's not the only way to have a one-hit wonder, but it is the only way to have a lasting.
I don't know if I'm like as confident about that. I think that there are people that we see that blow up on TikTok, have a moment, and they're flash in a pan. We've seen that. But there are people that like turn that spark, and because they're prepared and ready for it, to launch on and have a real launching off point and build a successful career from there.
But wouldn't you say that usually the way that happens is by bolstering that TikTok launch with, it doesn't have to be a great live show, but some combination of like a great body of work that is more than just a set of TikToks, like an EP or an album that's actually really good.
The music to be amazing. Like, music's the core of, you know, the foundation of all of this. I just don't know if I think that the only right answer today is like get in a van and play shows and build a fan base organically.
No, it's definitely a way to
there's not one right answer.
Yeah. So
no, it's hard.
It's hard to know.
It's really hard to know what the right thing is. And I also think, you know, I think one piece of advice that definitely remains, and to go back to your question about challenges, a challenge that is always the case and continues to be, and probably is more than ever in this era where like it's very easy to just tell people to make TikToks, is to like, if you're building a team, like build it with people who really are so aligned with you in terms of what you want out of your career, what you want out of your artistry, that you vibe with personally and like financially, that understand what your goals are as an artist, and that create a relationship with you that incentivize, that put you on the same, align your incentives together. I think that like, frankly, a lot of like representation deals are a little bit backwards sometimes. That's something we talk about a lot. And like, if I were to get back to like the wonky business side of it, I would say that like, that's an area that needs some reform, frankly, probably from both sides. I think a lot of people just like early in their career get involved with people who check some of those boxes, but don't check many of them.
Yeah.
But you all have done remarkably well on social media. I mean, for people that say we kind of came slightly before it was important, you know, social media has definitely boosted where you are. And it boosted revenue, I'm hoping, at least from, you know, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Reels.
I would give Gracie most of the credit for that. Gracie's definitely like pretty single-handedly driving our entire social media operation, both in terms of strategy of what kinds of things we should be posting, like timelines of when feels like the right time, what kind of content will be effective. When we're making like all these acoustic videos, she's the one, you know, picking which clips we should put up when and how to caption them both on the screen and in the caption. So like, you know, and she works obviously closely with people from our management and some video editing people that we work with to like create some of those assets and manage that calendar. But in terms of like your question of like, how have we managed to have social media play a vibrant role in like our growth and communication? She's really a big part of that. And of course, we will always have things of like, oh, we should really market this thing, but then like how exactly it's marketed and like how that manifests is very much something that Gracie has done a great job with.
Well, there's some massive creativity in some of your videos, especially the acoustic-ish stuff. You know, the single camera, the way it moves.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like those are a perfect example of something that we just started making because we thought that it would be cool, and we thought like, just let's try another thing. It's like no one was telling us, oh, you know what would be a really great piece of content for you? Like it was all in that era of like singing in your bedroom, looking at a stationary camera, I feel like was all of the content that was coming out around that time. So yeah, it was just like purely born out of something that we thought would be like a cool rendition of some of our songs. And then, yeah, you know, it's a combination of, I do a great job with making the arrangements fun and interesting. Jonny does an amazing job of producing and mixing all of that audio. Like it sounds so good, even though it's just like people without any headphones or any isolation in a room together. Gracie does a great job working with the camera person to literally script every single moment of where the camera is going to be. And then all of the performers, including usually Jordan and all the great singers that we get, like do such a great job. So it kind of just worked out that way.
I think it's cool to note, and I think we've all spoken about it, that like in the world of social media, there are all these trends that are happening. And I think often artists are told to like follow those trends and participate in them, whether it's like this audio that's sped up or like this open verse, like there are so many things that are constantly changing. And what's funny and always
we failed miserably.
Yeah, we fail at those. But the things that connect for us, like you're saying, are these things that somehow just do fit in our existing brand. Like all the live content does really well, and these acoustic-ishes do really well. So I do think a piece of advice to younger people is like, you have to be thinking about all of the modern tools that exist to help launch your project and find the things that are extensions of your brand. What, like your TikTok content, which I think we would all agree needs to exist in some shape or form. Take the time to like figure out what that means for you. And if you have to make new content every week, make things that you love and you're really proud of. Don't just like conform to what's currently going viral on the internet.
Yeah, like make something that you think is great.
Yeah, like you need to believe in it because you're going to be doing a lot of it. So make something.
Be true to yourself, right? Be true to who you are and to what you want to do. Because, you know, if it doesn't work out, in the end, at least you can look back and say, I was true.
I think that's like the biggest thing is like we would be, or at least I would be, having so much fun making these acoustic-ish videos if no one was watching them. If no one was watching them and it was doing nothing for our career, I would be like, I'm so proud of that and I'm so happy that it's out there. And like we're actually spending money to make these because it's fun and I just really believe in it. So the fact that it's now become something that not only is driving so much fan growth, but in fact, those videos are like profitable. In fact, they've become like is completely awesome. But like, I'd be happy to make those videos if they weren't, you know? And I think that that's your point. You can look back.
Huge round of applause from everyone I know in the industry for crediting every musician who is in your video, for giving their hashtag. And that is just, you know, that I'm of an age where I grew up reading the back of record albums to see the names of every musician that played on every song. Yeah. And of course, that's something that, you know, most of the session guys that I work with would be invisible now. They just switched it that on Spotify, you now have the full instrumental credits. And I actually had a call with our management this morning because ours are not currently yet properly displayed, but we're going to work on making sure that like every instrumentalist on, you know, the studio records is credited when you look on Spotify. You have passion and you have integrity and you know, that's why I think we'll like your success. So listen, as we start to wrap up, I'm going to ask you a final question, if I could. So at this stage in your careers and in your life, what keeps you motivated to get up tomorrow and do it again?
It's a good question. I just like doing it.
Yes, same thing that when I was 15. else am I gonna do?
I'm like not someone that like feels the need to like reinvent our wheel. I wouldn't say that I'm not interested in reinventing the wheel, because I feel like we are always trying to do things differently. But I enjoy like what we're doing and how we're doing it, and like excited to just like see wherever that next road takes us. Like, it doesn't mean that our next album will be the same as the one before it. In fact, I'm quite confident it probably won't be, but like, it will just be whatever we decide that it is. And that really excites me. It's just like my favorite thing to do. So I feel like I don't really need much motivation, because we have the ability to come into the studio today. The second that this Zoom interview ends, we're going to be like, what music should we make? And that's like fun to be able to do that.
You're nodding, John.
Through that lens, it's like you just, and it's such a cliche, but when you're loving what you're doing, you don't need to like search for more reason to do it other than the fact that you just love to
Feel lucky that we're doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly.
What motivates you, Johnny? What makes you tick?
I was going to say the same thing. It's not like, I was trying to think about like, it's such a funny question to ask that to a group of people who are doing a job that is so objectively fun. Like, you know, it's not like you're trying to like, you know, I'm trying to think about what would be a tough job. If you were like somebody who worked in a coal mine and you ask them what motivates you to get up in the morning, like that's like, oh, it seems like it's tough to go into that like deep dark hole where you have your pickaxe.
It's kind of like that.
You're like knocking out, like knocking out rocks, like whatever it is, like 50 feet onto the ground. But it's like, no, it's like I'm getting up to go into the studio with my friends and make some music. Like, that's a fun day.
There may be some more similarities between working in a coal mine in a deep dark hole and being in the industry.
Yeah, we're literally in a basement right now that's probably filled with mold.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to shout out, assuming that and we can cut this if it comes out before this, but one thing that I'm really motivated about this year, that I'm really excited about, is that we're going to be throwing a festival. Like a few years ago, we threw a festival called Staycation, which was 3 nights of Lawrence headline shows at a venue where every day it was a different theme, and every day there was a different multiple openers. And you could come for the whole weekend, and we were vowing to not repeat songs from night to night. So you'd come and see essentially 6 unique hours of Lawrence performance, plus like 6 other bands, and each night was heavily themed and had all these fun special guests and things. And to your point, that's not something that anyone told us would be a good idea financially or otherwise, but it was something that sounded really fun to us to do. And it was a big success for us a few years ago. And so we're going to do it again this year, when we're making it even bigger than last time. We're doing 3 nights in New York and 3 nights in LA this fall. You know, that's like the kind of creative project that like may or may not be the best use of our time, but it just sounds really fun. And I think like we're all really, to what we're talking about the acoustic issues, even if it doesn't do that much for us, like we will look back on it, I assume, being like so happy and proud that we did it. And by the way, I think it will be really fun, and I think it will sell really well. But so I think that it's probably going to be announced right around the time this comes out. So I think that really ties part and parcel into everything we're talking about in terms of our brand and what motivates us and what kinds of things. And that will certainly be a grand display of all of the many hats that we wear. So it's called Staycation, and it's probably on sale now if you're watching this on our website. So come party with us in New York and LA for 3 days each this fall.
So Clyde, Johnny, Jordan, thanks so much for talking to the sessions. Appreciate your talent, your passion, your hard work, your integrity, your loyalty, and your music more than you know. Thanks for helping the new generation and the older generation that still don't know how to get by in our industry that we all complain about but truly love dearly. It's been an inspiration talking to you, and thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Great talking with you.
Thanks.
Sound Family here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel. We'll see you real soon.